Was elected mayor. It was August of 2016. He had been elected but not taken office. I got a call from him because he was upset that we were spending all of the money from TOT on the convention center. He said, we can do this better. I want to create an opportunity to invest in the waterfront. I want to juice our visitor economy and do something really unique. He talked about the Powerhouse Science Center, which is now under construction just north of here. He talked about Old Sacramento, but also on all the underdeveloped property to the south and north of here. Today is the delivery on that vision and promise as he announces the Destination Sacramento Fund. It is not the Darrell Steinberg Fund. It is the Destination Sacramento Fund. And it is truly his grit, perseverance, and he just doesn't like the word no, that has brought us here today. So I want to thank Mayor Steinberg. These investments, along with this boardwalk that you heard Michael Auld talk about, this was $10 million just to fix what were ADA problems. Everybody knows that the hotel tax can't be used for lots of things, and I'll leave some of those ideas to the mayor. But I want to tell you that the love you're demonstrating for the waterfront today is the same love for this unique place that led to the city's birth on this very spot. This is where we started, and this is where we will invest, and this is where the next generation of visitors, whether they're local or from afar, will fall in love with this very city again. So with that, I'd love to introduce our mayor, our champion for the waterfront and champion for so much, Darrell Steinberg.
Wow, what an exciting evening. I mean, I don't get like overly excited or nervous about too many things these days, you know. I've had a few years in this business. I woke up this morning saying, wow, this is really one of the, not the only, but one of the great defining moments for Sacramento. And I could not be more excited and maybe a little bit nervous as I get the opportunity to make this announcement in a few moments. But let me begin with my thank yous. And I know I will leave out individuals, and if I do, I'm sorry, because you're in my heart. And I'll thank you personally. I want to start with my colleagues. Thank you, Steve Hansen, for your warm introduction and for being such a champion yourself of not just the Central City, but our entire city. And for your willingness to step out and take some risks. The same goes with Eric Guetta and Jay Chenier, and really all my colleagues who aren't here. And I appreciate you guys being here because you recognize that we can do it all and have it all in Sacramento, and you demonstrate it in your districts and citywide every day. But it's our entire city council, some of who aren't here. You know, it's Angelique Ashby, it's Alan Warren, it's Jeff Harris, it is Rick Jennings, and it is Larry Carr as well. We are a team, as well as our city management, and we, you know, sometimes argue, sometimes disagree, but we always get the job done. Thank you to all of you. Thank you to Terry Harvigo for believing in Old Sacramento. Thank you to everyone who has believed in the waterfront, and the new investors, the people like Roman Porter, who decides to invest his money in an 18-hole mini golf course here, an example of what's possible and the confidence that people have. Thank you to my team who works day in and day out on behalf of our city with all their hearts. I appreciate you all. Richard Rich! Can't say enough about his forward thinking and his vision. Michael Auld, thank you so much for constantly being an advocate for this project. And Brooksy Hughes, the leadership of the Downtown Sacramento Partnership, Mike Teston, Visit Sacramento, and your team. And I do not want to leave out the state of California, because it's a new day here in terms of the relationship between the city and the state, and it's demonstrated here today. So, allow me to begin. We stand together today on a spot that was once the pulsing innovation heart of Sacramento. Hotels lined Front Street, and our port bustled with ships unloading goods and people. At night, Governor and business titan Newton Booth, right over there, threw some of the best parties in town in his mansion. Aside from the Railroad Museum, I'm not sure when the last time a governor or state leader held a big event along the Sacramento waterfront. 150 years ago, the waterfront was a space for new ideas like the Pony Express and the Transcontinental Railroad, which started a few yards from us. Those days are a proud part of Sacramento's history, and we are right to preserve them in this historic district. But people are also very clear with me, and they're clear with my colleagues. Our waterfront should be more than just a time capsule of those bygone days. Great cities use their rivers. They take advantage of their natural assets to grow tourism and jobs, nature spots and night spots, and create buzz inside and outside their cities. Let us acknowledge that in the modern era, we have never really done that. Our river has been walled off and tamed, but never fully embraced. Sacramentans long to be close to the water, but we have made it next to impossible for them to get close. We do not have to be like other cities, but we can learn a lot from them. Other cities have demonstrated that the key to building a successful waterfront is to create places where people can gather. Pittsburgh has built a series of parks and promenades and people places. Chattanooga's spectacular new waterfront park includes step terraces of lawn and concrete where people can sit. Cincinnati's Smale Riverfront Park has splash fountains for kids and a restaurant where their parents can get a meal or drink a beer. For decades, we have talked and talked and talked about our waterfront. We've dreamt about how the edge of our mighty river could become the front porch for our city. We've held endless charrettes and made a lot of plans. But with few exceptions, not much has really happened. What we are about to describe and take before the City Council on Tuesday is different from those decades of hoping and wanting and watching our friends in West Sacramento activate their side of the river. On Tuesday, I will ask my colleagues to establish the Destination Sacramento Fund and transfer up to $45 million into that fund to begin creating a new waterfront on the Sacramento side. Councilmember Hanson described how we got the money, and I won't bore you with the long story, but it is instructive about how if a city is smart, if we are strategic, we can in fact have it all. And if we cannot have it all, we can have more than what we might otherwise settle for. Because we were going to put all of our so-called hotel tax, TOT resources into three very important assets. And we took a time out when I became mayor, and we worked hard. And the hoteliers, who deserve a lot of credit and Visit Sacramento, stepped up and provided over $40 million to build the ballroom for the convention center so that we didn't have to do that in phases. What's the result of that little math equation and negotiation that we did over 2 years? We now have $40 to $45 million to invest in another destination amenity. And I've said from the beginning, I say it tonight, I'll say it on Tuesday, I'll say it for the next year. That next destination needs to be the Sacramento waterfront. This is great, by the way. We are bustling with vision in this city. Nearly 10,000 people cast electronic votes on the design concept submitted by professional teams and community members in our Waterfront Idea Makers competition. City planning and economic development staff considered all the proposals and combined the most promising elements into a specific set of big projects for the waterfront. That vision will be presented a little bit by me tonight, but in even greater detail to the City Council on Tuesday. Here is the basic idea. Instead of having people just come to the Railroad Museum, grab an ice cream, and leave, we're going to create a string of new attractions that will pull them deep into Old Sacramento as they work their way from one great and fun activity to the next. Just like a shopping mall needs more than one anchor, Old Sacramento needs more than just one major attraction. It also needs new spaces where we can program events like every week, like this every week, rather than just once or twice a year. So there are a bunch of photos behind me, and they show the ideas that we are putting forward. And I don't know, until my colleagues weigh in and the public weighs in more, whether what we seek to create will look exactly like this. But I know this, when I saw this for the first time several weeks ago, because, I'm not the design guy. I bring the money to the table here, right? When I saw this design, I only had one word, and it was wow. And I want to go through this with you a little bit, recognizing that I'm not the design guy, but look at what we want to do. There are 4 categories here, so keep this in mind, all right? And we believe we can do all this with the money that we will be able to transfer into this Destination Sacramento Fund. First of all, our new waterfront park in Sacramento. How about that? So here it is. And here are some of the elements. A new freight depot. Look at this. 2 stories where on the bottom floor you can have art exhibits, you could have small performances, you can have all kinds of public gatherings. On the top floor, you could have restaurants, you could have wine bars, places for people to come on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, couples, families, to have a good and great time. I know I was wowed when I saw that wharf in Washington, D.C. when we went back to the Cap trip. I want something like that and something like this in Sacramento, but that's only one part of the waterfront park. We're also talking about, I'm going to take this mic here. We're also talking about a festival lawn here that will be obviously a public gathering place for the same thing, whether they be big events, whether they be rallies, whether they be kids running around, whether it's families and people throwing frisbees. We can have a stage in an amphitheater where we can have live performance, but a large festival space with the opportunity for stage to be able to have almost anything here. And then, if I move to my left, we have the water fountain feature. Now, this was inspired by a young Natomas resident who came forward to the city council and said, we need to have a water feature in our new waterfront park. These are some ways and some ideas of what it might look like. Not only visually beautiful, but how about letting kids and adults run through the water during the summer here in Sacramento. And then down here, we've got, as the last part of stage 1 here, Project 1 is play for all ages. Using the old railroads and looking and creating a different kind of play structures for kids to be able to hang out and have a great time. But that's only one piece of it. Number 2, I said there are 4 pieces. Number 2, We, within these resources, and we welcome dogs as well to the waterfront, and all animals. A floating terrace. Part of the goal here is to allow people to actually touch the river, to actually have access to the water. So look at this. Again, with the floating barge, you could actually have another public venue for concerts, plays, or just gatherings. But you could also create an actual river swimming experience safely by creating these swimming pools out of the barges. So these are things that we're all going to look at together, and we're going to come back with specific price attached to it. But we believe with $35 to $45 million that we can transform this whole area. So that's only number 2. Number 3 is a history museum deck. See right over here? Sorry. Move this over. This is to take that history museum and create, again, a deck that is not only another destination, but provides iconic views of the river and West Sacramento. And then the state of California, with its part of the land, promises to build an actual beachfront. So that people, we don't have a picture of that, unfortunately, but is reflected. Mary Lake, can you show where that is reflected on the big diagram here? What my notes actually say, and I should say it exactly as it's written, in collaboration with us, State Parks will replace junky shoreline over by Railroad Museum with new terraces, walkways, and beach. So that's not the end by any means. I think it's pretty impressive. I think it's wow. But we know when we make a substantial public investment in this crown jewel, that the private sector will also be ready to jump in once they see that we're making the waterfront a priority. We've already heard interest in building a hotel on the half block of empty land owned by the state in front of the Railroad Museum. And wouldn't it be great if we could get another entertainment venue for live music? Old Sacramento will not be the end of our riverfront vision. It's just the place where we are starting on a larger effort to remake and link our entire waterfront, from Discovery Park to Miller Park. The Powerhouse Science Center is under construction right now, just to the north. And thank you, Councilmember Hanson and all my council colleagues. That project had a few near-death experiences, but it is very much alive, and it is going to happen. And we're working hard with the Tree Foundation and others to build a Hanami line of cherry trees in Matsui Park. I hope we can put a little public money, a little of this money into that as well. We're also focusing on the area north of the I Street Bridge that connects our waterfront to the new development planned, of course, for the rail yard. So some people ask, why should we spend this money on roof decks, on pools and fountains, on all these great destination amenities for Sacramentans and for tourists, instead of paying for more police officers or building more homeless shelters? It's a common question. So I wanted to take the opportunity to answer it. I understand the argument, but it's a false argument, because the money for our waterfront improvements comes from taxes on hotel bills in our downtown, as I said. And the law requires that it be spent specifically on places people will visit and where they can gather. And these uses will create additional hotel business in our city and bring in more tax money we can use for future improvements. It's a virtuous cycle of economic growth. Investing in our neighborhoods and getting people who are homeless off the streets are my top priorities as mayor. Something I and my colleagues work hard on every single day. But to be a healthy city, we also have to create economic generators like Major League Soccer and more arts and culture. and a revitalized waterfront, which will produce more business and ultimately more tax dollars for us to pay for those city services and to be able to address problems like homelessness and affordable housing. It is important, I think, that we restate with clarity and honesty that Old Sacramento is a great place and people have devoted their professional lives and it has a wonderful history and people have invested their heart and their finances in this part of town. But we must also acknowledge honestly, and it's not a criticism, that it's also a tired part of town and that it needs a reboot. Tremendous work has occurred over the last 40 years, but the truth is because it's old and hasn't been fully utilized, it underperforms other historic districts around the state. And it underperforms most of our major shopping districts in the city. The district here has few hotel rooms and attracts few overnight visitors. We must change that for Old Sacramento, for the waterfront, for the city and the entire region, and we're going to do just that. The city just commissioned a study, actually, that estimated the tax revenues from Old Sacramento could jump from $700,000 a year to $4.2 million a year annually if we make the kinds of improvements that you see behind me and if we attract more private development. So let's do it. We can have it all here in Sacramento. More destinations, more jobs, all with a strong connection to our neighborhoods. Rebuilding our waterfront, for me, epitomizes our goal of creating destinations with purpose. This can be a place Sacramentans visit every week, not just once or twice a year. A place people can come and enjoy for free. A place that we can all brag about as Sacramentans. Brag! When New Orleans sells its city to visitors, it talks about the French Quarter. When Memphis sells its city to visitors, it talks about Beale Street. When San Antonio sells its city to others, it talks about the Riverwalk and the Spurs, but that's another story. When we talk about our waterfront, too often we shrug and we talk about I-5 and say, someday. Someday is today. Someday is next Tuesday. Someday is not decades away. In a few short years, watch other cities look at us with envy because in 2019, Sacramento decided to say yes to making something spectacular out of our most important natural asset. Thank you very much, everybody. Please come Tuesday night to the City Council, beginning at 5 o'clock. Appreciate everybody. What a great night. Let's have a party. There's coconut drinks. There might be other drinks. Thank you.